Oliver had just wrapped up a week of lavish parties, his penthouse buzzing with laughter, when he found her, Mia, the maid's daughter, crouched in the shadows, devouring the remnants of last night's feast. At just 12, she wore oversized hand-me-downs, her eyes wide with fearful hunger and fear. In that moment, a wave of sad guilt crashed over him, drowning out the clinking of crystal and the echoes of privilege. He couldn't just walk away. He wouldn't. By dawn, he had transformed her life, enrolling her in a private school with a full scholarship and promising her a future far brighter than the one she had known. My name is Oliver. I refuse to turn a blind eye any longer. The next morning, I woke with a hopeful sense of purpose that felt foreign to me. My usual routine of business meetings and solitary meals was eclipsed by a new goal. I needed to know Mia and Sophie better. After a quick shower, I made my way to the kitchen, not entirely sure of what I would say. Mia was there, her back to me as she prepared breakfast. The scent of sizzling eggs filled the air, but it was the sight of her determination that struck me most. I cleared my throat, feeling oddly nervous. "Mia," I began, my voice more tentative than I intended. She turned, surprise flickering across her features before giving me a cautious smile. "Good morning, Mr. Oliver." "Please, call me Oliver." I offered her a genuine smile, trying to bridge the chasm between us that had felt insurmountable until now. "I wanted to talk about Sophie." "Of course, sir," she replied, lowering her gaze as if she were afraid of what I might say. I could see the worry etched on her face, the constant weight of responsibility that hung around her shoulders. "Is everything all right?" "It's more than all right," I assured her, stepping closer. "I want to help. I can't change the past, but I can support you both moving forward. I've already arranged for Sophie to start school next week, a good school." As the words left my mouth, I held my breath, half expecting her to refuse, to push back against the kindness I was offering. Mia looked surprised, stunned, her hands pausing mid-motion. "You don't have to do this, Oliver. We are managing just fine." Her voice trembled slightly, as if she feared being a burden. "No," I countered firmly, trying to convey the sincerity of my intentions. "You're not a burden. I want to help because I can and because I want to. You and Sophie, hopeful, deserve the opportunity to thrive." It was strange to feel this level of connection with someone whose life had been so different from mine. Yet, here we were, two worlds colliding in the most unexpected way. Sophie came bounding into the kitchen, her tiny face happy, lighting up the room like the morning sun. "Good morning," she chirped, her innocence a stark contrast to the weighty conversation unfolding. I couldn't help but smile back. She seemed to have an innate ability to brighten the dreariest of moments, and I found myself looking forward to seeing more of her. "Hi, Sophie," I said, kneeling to her level. "How would you like to go to a new school? A really nice one where you can meet lots of friends." Her wide eyes excited with excitement. "Will they have swings? I love swings." "They will have swings and more," I promised, watching as her enthusiasm bubbled over. Mia smiled softly, a hint of disbelief crossing her features. "You really mean it?" she asked, as though she couldn't fathom such kindness. "Absolutely," I replied, standing tall. "I want to make a difference, even if it's just for you both." As the morning unfolded, I found myself more involved in their lives than I had anticipated. I sat with Sophie at the small kitchen table while Mia prepared breakfast, encouraging her to share her dreams. The little girl spoke animatedly about wanting to be an astronaut, her imagination igniting as she described flying to the moon and discovering new worlds. I listened intently, fascinated by the endless possibilities she envisioned, and a warmth spread through me that I hadn't felt in years. Mia joined us, her happy laughter mingling with Sophie's, creating a sound that wrapped around my heart like a gentle embrace. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the weight of loneliness pressing down on me. Instead, I felt the beginnings of something resembling family, a connection that had been foreign for far too long. Later that afternoon, I made my way to my office, but my mind drifted back to Mia and Sophie. As I sat at my desk, surrounded by the luxury that meant little to me in the grand scheme, I contemplated my estranged father, James. He had always been so focused on his own ambitions that he never truly saw me. Maybe this was my chance to redefine what family meant, to reach out and mend the broken ties that bound us. The thought of approaching James filled me with anxiety. Would he understand my desire to change? Would he even care? After all, he had built his empire on the principles of success and hard work, often overlooking the human cost that accompanied it. But if I was going to break this cycle of loneliness, I needed to try. I pulled out my phone and stared at it, the weight of the decision heavy in my hand. Before I could second-guess myself, I hit dial, listening to the ringing tone echo through the silence of my lavish office. When his voice finally came on the line, I hesitated, but I pushed forward. "Dad, it's Oliver," I said, my voice steadying. "I'd like to talk. Can we meet?" The reply was slow in coming, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. "What's this about?" he asked, his tone guarded. "It's about us, about family." My heart raced as I waited for his response, uncertain of how he would react to the words that had been buried inside me for so long. "I'll think about it," he finally said, and the call ended abruptly. A mixture of hopeful relief and nervous apprehension washed over me. I had taken the first step, but it was only the beginning. As I returned to the kitchen to check on Mia and Sophie, I found them deep in conversation, their happy laughter filling the air like music. The sight warmed me. I realized that in this chaotic world, moments of love and connection were what truly mattered. I was beginning to understand that my wealth meant little without the joy of shared experiences. This was more than just helping a maid and her daughter. It was about hopeful, rediscovering what it meant to be human, to belong. I took a deep breath, hopeful, embracing the changes unfolding in my life, ready to see where this unexpected journey would lead. As I stood there, contemplating the lives of Mia and Sophie, I felt a shift within me. It was as if the walls I had meticulously built around my heart were beginning to crumble. I remembered the echoes of my father's disapproval, a constant reminder of my shortcomings. But the warmth in Sophie's eyes reminded me that not all connections had to be fraught with tension. I resolved to find a way to bridge the gap between my past and this hopeful newfound hope. The next day, I sought out Mia in the sprawling kitchen, a space that had become a refuge for her and her daughter. I noticed the tired weariness etched on her face, the signs of someone who carried more than just the weight of her job. "Mia," I said, my voice steady but softer than usual. "I'd like to help you and Sophie more. You both deserve better than what life has handed you." She paused, her expression of surprise and skepticism. "What do you mean?" she asked, her brow furrowing. I could see the cautious hope flickering in her eyes, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had long since become her companion. I explained my desire to provide more than just financial assistance. I wanted to create an environment where Sophie could thrive. I envisioned a small scholarship fund, something that could support her education, give her the opportunity she needed to grow, to dream bigger than her circumstances. Mia's silence felt heavy, the weight of my proposition hanging between us. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. That's very generous, Oliver, but I don't want to impose. I'm just the maid. Her words struck me. Here was a woman who had given her all for her daughter, yet could not see her own worth. I took a step closer, hoping to convey the sincerity of my intentions. You are not just a maid, Mia. You are a mother, a role model, and you deserve to be seen as more than the work you do. Over the following weeks, I found myself spending more time with Mia and Sophie. I initiated small changes in their lives, organizing simple outings, picnics in the park, visits to the local museum, and even a few baking sessions where Sophie and I would experiment in the kitchen. Each moment shared with them filled me with a sense of purpose that I had long thought lost. I was becoming a part of something beautiful, a family in its own right. Sophie, with her wide smile and energetic energy, would often tug at my sleeve, imploring me to play games or listen to her stories about school. I cherished these moments. They were a refreshing contrast to my lonely existence. One afternoon, as we sat on the grass under a sprawling oak tree, Sophie turned to me, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Oliver, do you have a family? The question, surprised, caught me off guard, and I felt a melancholic pang of nostalgia mixed with regret. I hesitated, contemplating the fractured relationship I had with my father. I do, I finally said, choosing my words carefully. But it's complicated. My father and we haven't seen eye to eye for a long time. Sophie's brow knitted together in sympathy. Why don't you just talk to him? Maybe he misses you. Her innocent wisdom struck a chord deep within me. How could I have been so blind? Perhaps it was time for me to confront my own demons. That evening, after Mia and Sophie had gone home, I found myself staring at the phone, my heart racing as I dialed my father's number. The call rang for what felt like an eternity before he picked up. The voice on the other end was familiar, yet distant, filled with the same sternness I had come to know all too well. "Oliver?" he said, a mixture of surprise and wariness in his tone. "Dad, it's me," I said, my voice faltering slightly. "I'd like to talk." The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost hear the wheels turning in his mind, weighing the past against the present. Finally, he replied, "All right. When?" The meeting we arranged was laden with tension, but I was determined to break the ice. I chose a small cafe, one that had become a favorite of mine since I began to explore the city beyond my gilded cage. As I entered, I spotted him seated in a corner booth, his eyes scanning the room with an air of authority that had always intimidated me. I approached cautiously, the weight of years of estrangement hanging heavily between us. "Oliver," he acknowledged, his voice gruff but not unkind. "You look well." I nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth, though I felt a lump in my throat. "Thank you, Dad. I've been working on some things." The conversation stumbled along, filled with awkward pauses and tentative questions. I found myself recounting the joy I'd found in my new friendship with Mia and Sophie, hoping to evoke a semblance of pride or connection in him. As I spoke about Sophie's laughter and Mia's resilience, I noticed a hopeful flicker of recognition in my father's eyes. It was a small moment, but it felt monumental. "You've changed, Oliver," he said after a long silence. "I can see it in your voice." Those words, hopeful, ignited a hope within me that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. From that day forward, I made a conscious effort to create new memories with Mia, Sophie, and even with my father. We shared meals together, and I encouraged Sophie's artistic talents, arranging for her to take art classes. I could see Mia's confidence grow as she embraced her role not just as a mother, but as a partner in this evolving family dynamic. As the seasons changed, so did I. With each moment shared, I found healing, not just in my connection to Mia and Sophie, but also in my relationship with my father. Each interaction was a step toward building a legacy of love and acceptance. It dawned on me that family wasn't just about blood relations, it was about the bonds we chose to create. I finally felt the warmth of companionship and belonging. A realization that filled the emptiness I had carried for so long. With each passing day, I saw not only the transformation in Sophie and Mia, but also in myself. The process had not been without its struggles, but I was committed to nurturing these relationships. As I looked out at the life unfolding before me, I realized that my hope had opened to possibilities I had once deemed impossible. If you find inspiration in stories of connection, transformation, and love, consider subscribing. Let's continue exploring the journeys that shape our lives together. As the days passed, I found myself looking forward to the moments I could spend with Mia and Sophie. They became a part of my routine in a way that felt foreign yet comforting. Mia often worked tirelessly, her dedication evident in the way she meticulously arranged the household. I admired her strength. It reminded me of the resilience I had once admired in my own father, though he never showed it in the same way. I decided it was time to invite them into my world more openly. One evening, I set up a small dinner in the grand dining room. The ornate table was set with fine china and glimmering silverware. But instead of the usual pomp, I wanted something intimate. I called Mia and Sophie into the dining room, the air thick with anticipation. As they entered, Sophie's eyes, surprised, widened at the sight of the table, shimmering under the soft glow of the chandelier. I gestured for them to sit, and Mia looked hesitant. I assured her it was just dinner, nothing too extravagant. As we ate, I tried to steer the conversation toward lighthearted topics, asking Sophie about her favorite subjects in school. She animatedly shared stories about her teachers and friends, and I could see the sparkle in her eyes. Mia watched, a soft smile creeping across her lips. For the first time, I felt a connection that transcended our class differences. It was pure and uncomplicated, forged in shared laughter and innocent curiosity. The atmosphere shifted when I turned to Mia and asked about her life outside of work. She hesitated at first, as if unsure of how much to reveal. But the warmth of the moment encouraged her to open up. She spoke of her dreams before becoming a single mother, her aspirations of pursuing a career in art. I listened intently, fascinated by her passion and the way her eyes lit up when she talked about painting. I realized how little I knew about the people in my life beyond their roles. "Why don't you paint anymore?" I asked, genuinely curious. Mia shrugged, a shadow passing over her expression. "Life happened," she replied softly. "Sometimes it feels like dreams have to take a backseat to survival." There was a gravity in her words, a truth that struck me deeply. I couldn't help but think of my own life, the way ambition had consumed me, pushing aside the joy of simpler things. As the evening wore on, I felt compelled to do more than just listen. I wanted to encourage Mia, to help her reclaim a piece of herself that life had dimmed. "I have a studio in the East Wing. If you ever want to paint, you're welcome to use it. No pressure, just a place to express yourself." The invitation hung in the air, fragile yet hopeful. Mia looked at me, surprise evident in her eyes. "Really? You'd let me?" "Of course," I replied, a hopeful smile breaking through the seriousness of the moment. "Everyone deserves a space to create, don't you think?" Sophie, who had been listening intently, piped up, "You should do it, Mommy. It sounds fun." Her excitement was infectious, and I couldn't help but chuckle at her enthusiasm. It was a simple suggestion, but it felt monumental in that moment, like a door opening to a world that had long been closed. Over the next few weeks, I noticed a shift in Mia. She began to take me up on my offer, sneaking away to the studio whenever she could. I'd find her in there, lost in her art, the look of concentration and happy on her face a beautiful sight to behold. Each time I walked past the studio door, I felt a pang of inspiration. I wanted to create something of my own too, something to connect with the world I had isolated myself from for so long. One afternoon, I decided to join her. I grabbed a brush, unsure of what to paint, but determined to try. The chaos of color spilled across the canvas, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders with every stroke. Mia laughed at my clumsy attempts, but encouraged me nonetheless. It was liberating to step outside my usual boundaries and embrace the messiness of creativity. As we painted side by side, I couldn't help but feel a happy sense of family forming. It was more than just the three of us sharing a space. It was about the bonds we were creating. I thought about my own estranged father, James, and how he had never understood my desire to pursue things outside of financial success. His rigid expectations had shaped me into a man who feared vulnerability. But now, in this makeshift family, I found the confident courage to confront my own past. One evening, I took a leap of faith and invited my father to join us for dinner. The idea made my stomach churn, but I believed it was time to bridge the gap that had grown between us. I hoped that seeing me in this new light, surrounded by Mia and Sophie, might offer him a glimpse of the man I had become. As the clock ticked closer to dinner time, I felt a nervous energy coursing through me. But I held on to the hope that perhaps this would be the beginning of healing, not only for me, but for him as well. When James arrived, I caught a glimpse of the man who had always been a figure of authority in my life. His stern demeanor had often left me feeling like a disappointment. But as he walked through the door, I was determined to show him the warmth and love that I had found with Mia and Sophie. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the evening that changed everything for our fractured family. As I took a deep breath and opened the door wider, my heart raced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. James stood there, framed in the doorway, his expression a mixture of curiosity and wariness. I had spent so many years trying to win his approval. But tonight was different. I was no longer the same anxious boy looking for validation. I was a man who had started to grasp the importance of compassion and connection. a man who was ready to introduce him to a different side of life. "Oliver," he said, his voice gravelly as if the years had worn it down, "I didn't expect to see you." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions and years of distance. I could sense the walls he had built around himself were still intact, but I was determined to break through. "Neither did I, Dad," I replied, trying to sound confident despite the nervous flutter in my stomach. "I wanted to share dinner with you. There's someone I'd like you to meet." I gestured for him to step inside, his eyes scanning the room as if he were assessing a business deal rather than entering a home. As we moved into the dining area, Mia was setting the table. Her movements graceful yet hurried. She glanced up and offered a shy smile, and I noticed the way her eyes sparkled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Sophie, who had been playing quietly in the corner, looked up at the sight of James. Her curious, innocent curiosity piqued. "Who's that, Mommy?" she asked, her little voice echoing in the room. Mia knelt beside her, brushing a stray hair from Sophie's face. "That's Oliver's dad, sweetheart," she said gently, her tone warm yet cautious. I admired the way Mia handled Sophie's inquisitiveness, a subtle reminder of how much love she poured into their lives. James studied Mia for a moment, the lines on his face deepening as he took in the scene. I held my breath, waiting for him to react, praying for acceptance rather than judgment. "You work here?" he finally asked, his tone neutral. But I caught a hint of surprise in his voice. "Yes, sir," Mia replied, her respect for him evident even in the simplicity of her response. "And your daughter?" he pressed, his eyes flickering to Sophie, who was now peering shyly from behind her mother's leg. Mia took a breath, sensing the weight of the conversation. "I'm a single mother. I'm just doing my best for her," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability of her circumstances. I admired her strength and felt an overwhelming urge to protect both Mia and Sophie from any harsh judgment. Sophie stepped forward, her tiny hands clasped in front of her. "Hi, I'm Sophie. Do you want to see my drawings?" she asked, her enthusiasm a bright spot in the room. I watched James soften for a moment, as if the innocence of a child could penetrate the armor he wore. "Sure, I'd like that," he replied, surprising me with a hint of warmth. Sophie beamed, and she took his hand, leading him toward the small table where she had been coloring earlier. As the two of them engaged over her artwork, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Perhaps this moment held the promise of healing for my father and me, a chance for him to see the joy in connection and the beauty of vulnerability that I had come to cherish through my relationship with Mia and Sophie. While they examined the colorful drawings, I found myself standing beside Mia, who was finishing the final touches on the table. "I hope this evening goes well," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It will," I confidently assured her, my heart happy swelling with gratitude for her presence. "You've helped me see what really matters." She looked up, her eyes wide, as if she understood the depth of my sentiment. "I'm just trying to provide for Sophie," she said, a sad hint of weariness creeping into her tone. "But I want her to have a better life." "You're doing that," I replied earnestly. "You give her love and encouragement, and that's what counts." The tension in the room eased as James and Sophie laughed, the ice between us slowly melting. I dared to hope that perhaps my father was beginning to appreciate the simpler things in life, things he had neglected for far too long. Dinner was served, and we gathered around the table, a mix of my world and Mia's merging into something new. James took a moment to observe the spread of food, and as he glanced at Mia, I saw a flicker of recognition pass through him. He was beginning to understand the sacrifices she made, the love she infused into every meal. As we ate, the conversation flowed more easily than I had anticipated. James spoke of the past, his own struggles, and I found myself relating to him in ways I hadn't expected. The shared experiences of hardship and resilience bridged the gap between us, and with each passing moment, I felt a hopeful sense of connection growing stronger. Mia occasionally chimed in, her voice a gentle reminder of how important it was to appreciate life's little joys. Sophie has a big heart, she shared, beaming with pride. She always tries to help others, just like Oliver is doing now. My father nodded, his expression thoughtful as he turned to Sophie, who was busy telling stories about her drawings. "You're an artist, then?" he asked, curious, genuine interest flickering in his eyes. "Yes, I want to make people happy with my pictures," Sophie declared, her energetic passion filling the room with warmth. As the evening progressed, I could see the barriers I had long perceived crumbling away. My father was no longer just the stern man I had grown up resenting. He was a grandfather discovering the joy of a child's laughter. A man learning to embrace the world outside the confines of his own expectations. In that moment, I realized that my hopeful journey had just begun. It wasn't only about healing my relationship with my father. It was about learning to embrace family in all its forms, about understanding that love knows no bounds. I looked at Mia and Sophie, then back at my father, and felt a profound shift within myself. Perhaps the path ahead was brighter than I had ever imagined. As I stood there, the weight of my father's piercing gaze felt like a heavy fog surrounding us. Yet, within that thick mist, I could sense the warmth of a new connection blossoming between Mia, Sophie, and myself. It struck me how this small family had become a mirror of the love and vulnerability I had long stifled within my own heart. I took a deep breath, gathering the courage that had eluded me for so many years, and stepped forward. "James," I said, my voice steadier than I had anticipated, "I think it's time we have a real conversation." Mia watched us intently, and in her eyes, I could see a flicker of hope. I felt the need to explain how my loneliness had distanced me from all that mattered. I had spent years hiding behind the walls of my wealth, thinking it would protect me from hurt, but all it did was isolate me further. The silence that fell over us was thick, yet I knew we were on the verge of something transformative. I could feel Sophie's curious gaze burning into me, her innocent spirit urging me on. It was as if she understood more than any adult in the room could grasp. "Oliver," my father finally spoke, his voice gruff but softer than I remembered. "I regret many things about our past. I wanted the best for you, but I didn't know how to show it." The admission, surprised, caught me off guard, and for a fleeting moment, I could see the father I longed for, the one who had been buried beneath layers of expectation and disappointment. Encouraged by his honesty, I pressed on. "It's not just about your regrets, Dad. It's about the choices I've made, trying to fill that emptiness. I need you to see that I've been lost just as much as you were." Mia shifted uncomfortably, and I could tell she felt like an intruder in our family dynamic, but her presence was essential. Sometimes we find our way back to ourselves through hopeful paths, she said softly, her voice steady. You've helped Sophie and me more than you realize, Oliver. The sincerity of her words struck a chord within me. I had thought I was the one doing the saving, but Mia's admiring strength in battling her struggles while nurturing Sophie showed me that we were all intertwined in this hopeful journey of healing. With my father still watching us, I turned to Sophie, whose wide eyes sparkling with a mixture of curiosity and unspoken understanding. Sophie, I began, kneeling to be at her level. You've brought so much light into my life. I want to help make things better for you and your mom, but I also want to learn how to be better myself. Her small smile warmed my heart, and I could feel my icy facade begin to crack. In that moment, I realized that kindness is a two-way street, and I had much to learn from both Mia and Sophie. The days that followed were filled with small yet profound changes. I invited Mia and Sophie to join me for meals more often, and each time we shared a table, I felt the warmth of connection growing stronger. It was in the laughter over shared stories and the joy of simple moments that I began to see the world through their eyes. I learned about Sophie's favorite games, her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, and the little things that brought her happiness. I realized that my wealth meant nothing if I didn't invest in relationships that mattered. My father and I continued to mend our relationship, often reminiscing about the days when I was a child. I could see the regret etched on his face, but there was also a sense of relief that we were finally talking. I was hard on you because I believed that's what a father should do, he confessed one evening, his voice tinged with vulnerability. I thought discipline would make you strong, but I see now that I missed out on the chance to really know you. As I listened, I recognized that healing was not just about forgiving my father, it was about extending that forgiveness to myself. I had spent too long caught in the web of resentment and guilt, but now I felt an emotional release, almost as if a burden had been lifted. The more we communicated, the more I understood that every person carries their own scars, and those scars shape who we become. I wanted to share that insight with Mia and Sophie to show them that it was okay to be vulnerable. One evening, while we were preparing dinner together, Sophie excitedly asked if I could help her with the school project. I had never been more elated to be asked for assistance, and we spent hours creating a diorama of her favorite animal habitat. Mia watched us from the kitchen, a tender smile on her face as she saw the bond blossoming between us. I had finally found purpose outside of business deals and board meetings. My heart, happy, swelled with fulfillment. As we finished the project, Sophie beamed with pride. "Thank you, Oliver. I couldn't have done it without you." I felt an unfamiliar warmth spread within me, one that was far more nourishing than any material possession. "You did this, Sophie," I replied. "You had the vision, and I was just happy to help." At that moment, I understood that true wealth comes not from money, but from the relationships we build and the love we share. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself becoming part of Mia and Sophie's lives in a way I never anticipated. I began taking them on little outings, to the zoo or the park, where Sophie could run freely, laughing and playing. Each experience further blurred the lines of our previous roles, and I found myself stepping into a protective figure for them, cherishing the joy they brought into my sad, lonely existence. In my quiet moments of reflection, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the serendipitous events that led me to Mia and Sophie. I understood now that life has a way of guiding us toward the people who teach us the most about love, compassion, and family. My heart was opening up, and as I looked toward the future, I felt hopeful. If you have a story about finding unexpected family or discovering connections that changed your life, I invite you to share it. Let's celebrate the bonds that define us and remind one another that love can emerge from the most unlikely places. As the days passed, the warmth I had begun to feel around Mia and Sophie expanded into an unwavering presence in my life. It was as if they had unknowingly become the missing pieces of a puzzle I never realized was incomplete. Each time I saw Sophie, her happy smile, often smeared with remnants of her favorite snacks, reminded me of what it felt like to be carefree, to be unburdened by the weight of expectations. The happy laughter we shared echoed through the hallways of my sprawling home, filling the sad void that had long lingered within its walls. I took it upon myself to initiate small changes, beginning with our evening meals. Instead of dining alone at the grand table, I invited Mia and Sophie to join me. At first, they hesitated, unsure if this was a kind gesture or another manifestation of my billionaire privilege. But when they finally accepted, the atmosphere transformed. Our conversations, initially stilted and awkward, soon hopeful, blossomed into stories, jokes, and shared hopes for the future. I learned about Mia's dreams of starting her own catering business and the lengths she went to make ends meet for Sophie. In turn, I began to speak about my own life, revealing snippets of my childhood, the rigid expectations set by James that had shaped my path into a life of wealth, but stripped me of joy. One afternoon, after a particularly lively dinner, I found Sophie tugging on my sleeve, her large eyes filled with an innocent curiosity. "Why do you always look sad when you're by yourself?" she asked bluntly, her voice tinged with concern. I knelt down to her level, surprised by the depth of her question. "I guess I was just lonely, Sophie, but you've helped me realize that loneliness doesn't have to be forever. You and your mom have shown me there's more to life than just money." She considered my words for a moment, her face scrunching up in thought. "You should come to our house sometime." "It's not big, but there's always room for friends." The happy sincerity of her offer struck me, and I couldn't help but smile. I promised her I would, and as she skipped away, I felt a hopeful spark of hope igniting within me. That evening, I decided to pay James a visit. It had been years since I last saw him, and the thought of facing him filled me with a mix of anxiety and determination. I had spent so much time avoiding confrontation, hiding from the pain he represented. But then I thought of Mia and Sophie, of the love that was blossoming in my life, and I took a deep breath. Memories flooded my mind of harsh words exchanged, of pride and stubbornness creating a melancholy chasm between us that felt insurmountable. The door swung open to reveal my father, his expression a surprise and guardedness. "Oliver," he said curtly, as if my presence were an angry, unwelcome interruption in his meticulously ordered life. I felt the old, defensive walls rise inside me, but I fought against them. He stepped aside, allowing me to enter, and as I walked through the familiar space, I couldn't shake the feeling that it had grown colder, emptier over the years. I found myself sitting across from him in his study, the air thick with unspoken words. "I've been thinking a lot about us," I began, surprised by the confident steadiness of my own voice, "about how we've let our pride and disagreements come between us." James's brow furrowed, his stoic demeanor unyielding. "I don't regret what I did to make you who you are, Oliver. You've achieved a great deal. But at what cost?" I pressed, my heart racing. "I've built a life filled with success, but I've been so lonely, so lost. I want to find a way back to you." There was a moment of silence, an eternity that stretched between us as his expression shifted, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. "I didn't know how to show you I cared," he admitted, his sad voice cracking slightly. "I thought being tough would prepare you for the world. I see now that it pushed you away." A happy sense of relief washed over me at his admission, and I could feel the weight of years of resentment begin to lift. "I'm hopeful learning what it means to connect with people," I shared, thinking of Mia and Sophie. "I want you to be a part of that. I want us to, hopeful, try again." He nodded slowly, the lines on his face softening. For the first time in my life, I felt the hopeful possibility of healing. The next few weeks passed in a blur of new beginnings. I made regular visits to Mia and Sophie, helping Mia with her cooking, sharing ideas for her catering business, and spending afternoons playing games with Sophie. The happy laughter that filled their modest home felt like a balm for my soul, a reminder of the love that can thrive in simple moments. As I sat on the floor, surrounded by art supplies and glittering paper, watching Sophie create her latest masterpiece, I understood what it meant to be part of a family. I was no longer the lonely billionaire. I had become a friend, a mentor, and a source of support for those who needed it most. With every connection I nurtured, I sensed the walls I had built around my heart crumbling. I had once feared vulnerability, but now I embraced it. I was hopeful, ready to step into the light, ready to forge new paths with Mia, Sophie, and yes, even James. Life was no longer just about wealth. It was about the happy bonds we create, the love we nurture, and the families we choose.